Let's start here with the uncomfortable truth. You're not missing them. You're missing the version of them you invented. That's the real heartbreak. You're not grieving the person. They were never fully real. You're grieving the idea of them, the story you kept rewriting to justify staying, the love you hoped existed, the future you thought they promised. This is the pain no one talks about. Not the breakup itself, but the breaking of the illusion, the death of the fantasy. And you know what makes that grief so confusing? It's that your brain doesn't care whether the story was real or not. It attaches to feelings, not facts. That's why you can feel shattered over someone who didn't actually treat you right. Let me ask you something. Have you ever replayed one perfect memory so many times that you start to believe the entire relationship was good? It's not your fault. It's neuroscience. Your mind is wired for rosy retrospection. That's the term psychologists use when your brain romanticizes the past. It filters the highlights and silences the warnings. It's why the anniversary dinner feels louder than the 3 weeks of silence after. Why the late night calls replay louder than the morning you woke up crying. You see, we don't just grieve a person, we grieve a projection, a future, a version of ourselves we believed existed with them. And when that ends, it feels like you've lost your identity, like something in you died. But here's the wake-up call. You're not missing them, you're missing who you were with them. You're not missing them, you're missing the comfort of being wanted, even if it wasn't real. You're not missing them, you're missing the way your world made sense for a moment, even if it was a lie. And the longer you hold on to that illusion, the longer you stay stuck in a version of your life that never truly existed. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine once said, "Jay, I just want it back. I just want us back." And I asked her, "What exactly do you want back?" She said, "The way he looked at me, the way we used to laugh, the plans we made." So I asked again, "Okay, but what do you not want back?" And she hesitated. Then she said, "I don't want the anxiety, the walking on eggshells, the never knowing if I was enough." That moment changed everything for her. Because when you stop grieving the fantasy and start remembering the reality, healing begins. Here's your first practice. Write this down. I will not grieve with a fairy tale filter. This is your mantra. Stop glorifying the fragments. Start acknowledging the full picture. And I get it, grief doesn't just disappear. It won't vanish because I said some beautiful words or gave you a clever neuroscience term. That's not how healing works. Healing starts when you stop lying to yourself. And so I want you to write. Yes, write it out on paper, not just in your head. Write down what actually happened, what they actually said, what they actually did, and what they didn't do. No edits, no sugarcoating, no, but they were stressed, or but they had potential. Just the facts. Because here's the truth most people avoid. Clarity is closure. And closure isn't something they give you, it's something you create. When we romanticize the past, we reopen wounds that were already healing. Every time you say, "But we had something special," your mind reattaches to a version of the relationship that wasn't the full truth. Let me tell you what love is not. Love is not a highlight reel of 3 good moments stretched over 6 months of confusion. Love is not almost consistent. Love is not maybe safe. Love is not kind of supportive. That's wishful thinking. Real love shows up consistently, clearly, confidently. If you're in the grieving stage, I want you to hold this truth. You didn't lose a soulmate. You lost a story that was never fully yours to begin with. And that hurts. But it's also liberating because it means you can now start living in the truth. And truth is the foundation of transformation. The truth is, they weren't your forever. They were your mirror. And sometimes mirrors break, not to hurt you, but to show you the cracks that were always there. Now, take a breath. Let yourself feel the ache, but don't turn the ache into a shrine. Don't make the pain sacred. Don't start worshiping what hurt you. Because the longer you romanticize the past, the longer you delay your future. And the future? It's waiting for a stronger, wiser, and more honest version of you. One who chooses truth over fantasy. One who stops scrolling through memories and starts writing a new chapter. Here's the question I want you to ask yourself. Am I grieving the loss of a person or the loss of a story I wrote in my mind? And once you know the answer, do something powerful. Leave a comment below with one sentence of truth about your breakup. Share this episode with someone who's stuck in their past. Subscribe if you want more guidance like this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing to heal even when it hurts. You're not alone on this journey, and you never were. I'm here for you, and I'm rooting for you, always. Let me ask you something deeply uncomfortable. Are you healing from a breakup, or are you still secretly holding on to a fantasy? Because the truth is, most people don't miss their ex. They miss the future they never had. They miss the idea of love, not the experience of it. We're not hurting because of what was. We're hurting because of what we thought was going to be. And this is where most of us get stuck, in this invisible in-between, where we're not quite in the past, but we're definitely not in the present, where we're chasing a ghost and calling it love. Let's make this really clear. What breaks your heart is not always what built it. The relationship didn't break because of one moment. It broke because of a series of truths we refuse to face. And if we want to heal, we need to stop fantasizing about the future and start remembering the reality of the past. So let me walk you through something. When people talk about their ex, they say things like, we were going to move in together. We were planning a trip. He said he wanted kids someday. She told me I was the one, eventually. Notice anything? That's not the relationship. That's the potential. That's the fantasy you created to survive what you didn't want to see. That's the illusion your mind protected you with, because facing the truth would have hurt too soon. You were in love with the possibility, not the partnership, with the projection, not the person. Let's ground this into something real. There are only 3 questions you ever need to ask to see your relationship clearly. Did I feel safe? Did I feel seen? Did I feel supported? If you didn't feel safe, then you were in survival mode, always wondering when they'd pull away, stop responding, or blow up. If you didn't feel seen, then you were performing. You weren't being loved for who you are. You were being tolerated for who you were pretending to be. And if you didn't feel supported, then you were running alone while calling it partnership. So what do you do with this clarity? You write it down, not in your head on paper, because your mind is messy. It mixes truth with hope, pain with pleasure. Write what the relationship really looked like. How many times did you feel ignored? How often were you the one apologizing? What was said when things got hard? Who showed up when you needed them most? You're not writing this to punish yourself. You're writing this to wake yourself up. You see, the fantasy is loud. It plays like a movie in your head on repeat. But the facts, they're quiet. They're often buried beneath years of hoping someone would finally become the person you needed. But facts are healing, because facts are solid ground. And let me tell you, clarity doesn't take away the pain. It doesn't magically erase your feelings, but it gives them direction. It lets you grieve with your eyes open. It allows you to process what actually happened instead of mourning a movie that never aired. Here's another uncomfortable truth. You didn't get betrayed by the breakup. You got betrayed by the parts of you that begged to ignore the truth. That version of you that said, it's not that bad. That version of you that made excuses. That silenced your intuition because the relationship looked good on paper. We all do it. We stay for potential. We stay for timing. We stay because we don't want to start over. But staying somewhere that makes you shrink is already the end. You just haven't accepted it yet. So how do you begin to really heal? You make a new commitment, not to them, but to you. Say this out loud right now. I will not lie to myself just to feel loved by someone else. That's your contract. You are no longer available for half love, for almost there, for maybe someday. You are available only for truth, for grounded connection, for people who don't just say the right things, but who do the right things when it matters. And this part is crucial. Stop trying to make someone's potential your project. You are not here to fix someone. You are not a rehabilitation center for broken promises. If someone can't meet you where you are now, love them from afar and walk away. Because your peace is worth more than their potential. Let me tell you this, when you finally step into clarity, you begin to see the hidden beauty in what felt like betrayal. You realize that it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You realize that the breakup didn't destroy your life, it exposed where you'd already abandoned yourself. You realize that the person you were becoming with them was not the person you were meant to be. Sometimes losing someone is the only way you remember who you are. And if you're still holding on, if you're still hoping they'll wake up and realize what they lost, let me give you one last reminder. You don't need someone to regret leaving you. You need to stop regretting choosing yourself. That's the shift. That's the moment healing begins, not when they come back, but when you stop waiting for them to, when you stop asking, why did they leave? And start asking, why did I stay so long in a place that made me feel small? This is clarity. This is truth. And truth may not be easy, but it is always the beginning of peace. Let's talk about the loop. You know, the one, that spiral of overthinking, the constant checking, the stalking, the searching, the decoding, wondering what they're doing, who they're with, what they meant by that last post. It's like your brain has turned into a crime scene investigator and your heart's the victim again. And I want to say this clearly, you're not crazy. You're just caught in the obsession loop. There's a reason why your thoughts keep circling back. Why, no matter how hard you try, they still live rent-free in your mind. Why you're checking their stories like there's some kind of emotional oxygen. This is not weakness. This is wiring. Neuroscience tells us that breakups light up the same parts of the brain as drug withdrawal. That's not a metaphor. That's literal. Your brain reacts to emotional detachment the same way it reacts to detoxing off a chemical high. So what does that mean? It means every time you reread the old texts, scroll through their photos, check who they're following, try to read between the lines of their captions, you're taking another hit and you think it's giving you relief, but it's really just reinforcing the addiction. Let's break this down. You're not stalking them because you want the truth. You're stalking them because you want certainty. You want to know if they miss you, if they've moved on, if they're hurting too, if they've even noticed your absence. But here's the hard truth. Even if you found the answer, it wouldn't give you peace, because what you're really looking for isn't proof that they care. You're looking for a reason to keep holding on. You're looking for a justification to delay your healing, because healing means letting go, and letting go feels like a death. But here's what I want to tell you. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of your brain like a washing machine. When something traumatic happens, the brain throws the memory in the spin cycle. It goes around and around and around. And that's not wrong. That's part of the cleansing process. Repetition helps us process pain. You have to talk about it. You have to sit in it. You have to cry through it. But what happens if you leave clothes in the machine too long? They start to smell. They stretch. They lose their color. Eventually, they rot. It's the same with your thoughts. There comes a moment when the spin cycle has to stop. When the cleaning is done, when it's time to pull your emotions out of the machine and let them dry in the sun of self-awareness, if you keep spinning, if you keep replaying, if you keep searching for clues in places that only give you confusion, you're not healing, you're deepening the wound. So how do you interrupt the loop? Let's get tactical. Step 1, remove the triggers. That playlist? Gone. That hoodie that still smells like them? Pack it up. The photos, the notes, the gifts. Put them in a box and store it away. You're not being cold. You're being conscious. Your nervous system remembers that song. Your body remembers that scent. Your heart remembers those places. Healing isn't about pretending they didn't exist. It's about giving yourself the space to exist without them. Step 2, replace the ritual. You can't just stop checking their page. You have to start doing something else. Because here's the truth. Your brain is used to checking. Your body is used to the hit of anxiety and adrenaline when you see their name. Your heart is used to that flutter of false hope. You need to rewire that pattern. Start a new routine. Go for a walk when you feel the urge to check. Call a friend when the memory comes back. Meditate for 5 minutes before you grab your phone. Journal what you're feeling instead of messaging them. Don't wait to feel better to start healing. Start healing so you can feel better. This is where most people get stuck. They say, I'll stop checking when I feel stronger. No, you get stronger because you stop checking. Step 3, block, mute, unfollow if you have to. I know that sounds harsh. It feels like surrender, like giving up. But blocking isn't about them. It's about you. It's not about making a statement. It's about protecting your peace. When your mind is fragile, you don't keep glass on the edge of the shelf. You put it away until it's safe. Your peace is fragile right now. Protect it. Mute the notifications. Unfollow their friends if it hurts too much. Stop lurking in shadows that keep you in the dark. You're not weak for protecting your heart. You're wise. And this next part is for the warriors, the ones who say, I don't want to block them. I want to prove I can handle it. Here's the truth. Strength isn't proving you can watch them move on. Strength is choosing not to watch at all. Real strength is silence. Real strength is disappearing from their life without explanation. Not because you're trying to punish them, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who won't even ask where it hurts. Let me give you one final perspective. The longer you stay obsessed with their life, the more you delay the rebuilding of yours. You are not here to orbit someone who's no longer your Sunday. It's time to turn your attention inward, back to the life you were meant to build, back to the version of you that's not constantly seeking validation in a seen status or a new profile picture. Let them go. Let the loop go. Let the fantasy die. Because the moment you interrupt the obsession loop is the moment your healing begins to accelerate. That's when your mind gets clearer. Your energy comes back. And suddenly, the weight you were carrying starts to feel lighter. You are not addicted to them. You are addicted to the hope they represented. And when you stop chasing that hope in their world, you get to rebuild it in your own. Let's talk about the guilt, the weight, the heaviness, the voice that keeps whispering, it was all your fault. If you've ever gone through a breakup, you know exactly what I mean. That toxic loop where your mind replays every word you said wrong, every time you didn't show up, every moment you wish you could go back and fix. You start to believe you ruined everything. That if you were just a little more this or a little less that, maybe they would have stayed. Maybe you would have been enough. Let me say something to you that I wish someone told me earlier in my life. You can take responsibility without taking all the blame. Let that land for a second. Because too often, we confuse growth with guilt. We confuse awareness with self-punishment. We confuse reflection with emotional self-harm. Listen, I get it. The breakup left a blank space. No clear answers. No resolution. No apology. No closure. And when that happens, the brain does what it always does when it doesn't have data. It fills in the gaps, but your brain rarely fills those gaps with grace. It fills them with self-doubt, with worst-case scenarios, with mental punishments dressed up as self-analysis. This is called negativity bias, a cognitive pattern where we overemphasize what went wrong and minimize what went right. So if you're blaming yourself for everything, just know it's not just emotional, it's neurological. Your brain is wired to protect you by trying to solve the problem. But healing isn't about solving a breakup like it's a puzzle. Healing is about releasing what isn't yours to carry. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine carrying a backpack, but instead of clothes or tools, it's filled with bricks. And each brick is a lie you've told yourself since the breakup. I wasn't lovable enough. I wasn't patient enough. I didn't communicate well. I ruined everything. You didn't even realize you were picking them up. One by one, and now you're carrying this weight like it's your birthright. But what if I told you half of those bricks don't belong to you? What if I told you that you've been carrying their guilt, their silence, their unhealed trauma, and calling it your mistake? Here's a question I ask my clients when they're spiraling into blame. Are you analyzing the whole relationship or just your half? Because most people only obsess over their own flaws, their own failures, their own breakdowns, but a relationship is never one-sided. It takes two people to build it. It takes two people to break it. And when I press people to talk about what the other person did, something amazing happens. They pause, they hesitate, and then it all comes flooding out. They never really listened. I always felt alone, even when they were there. I walked on eggshells more than I laughed. They promised change but delivered nothing. You see, when the illusion fades, truth has space to speak. Let me tell you this. Blame is a prison. Responsibility is a path. Blame says, I broke it, I'm bad, I'm unworthy. Responsibility says, here's what I could have done better, and here's what I now choose to grow from. Blame traps you in guilt. Responsibility frees you through growth. If all you're doing is punishing yourself for what went wrong, you're not healing. You're self-destructing. There's a massive difference between owning your part and owning the whole mess. Let's say it together. I can be imperfect without being the villain. I can reflect without self-hate. I can grow without carrying someone else's emotional baggage. Now let's address something deeper. You didn't just ignore red flags because you were naive. You ignored red flags because you were scared. Scared of starting over. Scared of being alone. Scared that if you didn't make this work, maybe love wasn't for you. And that fear, it made you justify a lot. It made you tolerate a lot. It made you silence yourself just to stay chosen. So don't blame yourself for that. Forgive yourself for surviving. You did what you knew how to do with the love you had. You loved as best as you could. You stayed because your heart still believed. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. But now you know better. You've seen the red flags in hindsight. You've heard your intuition in rewind. You've started noticing the signs you once ignored. And that is growth. That is power. That is healing. You see, the question is not, can I trust them? It's, can I trust myself to walk away when trust is broken? And this is where I want you to start anchoring your truth. Your worth was never based on how someone treated you. Your value isn't determined by someone's inability to see it. You are not broken because a relationship broke. You are not to blame for someone else's lack of presence. You are not responsible for carrying both hearts while they stood still. Now it's your time to rebuild. And no, that doesn't mean erasing the past. It means integrating it. Use it as wisdom. Use it as discernment. Use it as clarity, not shame. Because here's the truth. The version of you that keeps blaming themselves is not your highest self. It's your wounded self trying to find control in a situation that left you powerless. So let that part of you speak. But don't let it lead. Let it feel. But don't let it steer. You are not your mistakes. You are your healing. Say this with me. I release what was never mine to carry. I forgive the version of me that didn't know better. I will no longer punish myself for trying to love someone fully. Because here's what I know about you. You are not defined by that relationship. You are not defined by how it ended. You are defined by what you do next. And the moment you reject the narrative that it was all your fault, that's the moment you reclaim your power. Let's get something clear because most of us don't hear this often enough. Closure isn't something they give you, it's something you create. I know that's hard to accept because deep down, you're still waiting for it. Waiting for that final conversation, that honest apology, that perfect message that finally explains why it all fell apart. But here's the truth, most people avoid. If they cared enough to give you closure, they wouldn't have left you without it in the first place. Closure is not a door they're supposed to walk back through. It's a door you're meant to lock yourself. You've probably said this to yourself. I just want to know why. I just need to hear them say it. If I could just talk to them one more time, I'd be okay. But let me ask you something. Would you actually be okay? Or would that conversation just spark another chapter of pain? Would it offer real peace or just delay the healing you know you need? Because here's what I've learned from working with thousands of people in heartbreak. The idea of closure has less to do with the truth and more to do with avoiding the reality of being left without answers. And the deeper truth is this. You don't need their permission to move forward. You need your own. So how do you create closure? Not just in your mind, but in your nervous system? Because grief doesn't live in your thoughts alone, it lives in your body. It lives in the way your stomach tightens when you hear their name. It lives in the way your chest collapses when you see a memory pop up on your phone. It lives in the tension, the fatigue, the exhaustion of still waiting for peace from someone who's already gone. So we don't just think our way to closure. We ritualize it. We embody it. We create an ending that gives our body a signal. This chapter is done. Let me walk you through some powerful rituals. Ritual 1, the unsent letter. Write them a letter. Write every word you never got to say. The anger, the heartbreak, the disappointment, the memories, the gratitude, the confusion, all of it. Don't edit. Don't polish. Don't filter your truth to make them comfortable. Then burn it, or bury it, or rip it up and throw it into the wind. Why? Because your nervous system needs a symbolic action. It needs an ending. And this act tells your brain, we've spoken, we've released, we move forward now. Ritual 2, delete the digital ties. Delete the thread, the last messages, the DM history, the contact name, the photo album. And I get it, that feels like you're erasing something important, but you're not erasing the past. You're reclaiming your present. Every time you reread a text, your body reopens a wound. Every time you scroll through pictures, your heart time travels into a reality that doesn't exist anymore. You don't heal by revisiting ghosts. You heal by removing the mirrors that keep reflecting pain. Ritual 3, a walk without your phone. Yes, it sounds simple, but trust me, it's transformative. Pick a place that holds no memories. Go alone. Leave your phone behind. Walk without distraction, without GPS, without music. Because in this silence, you'll meet someone important. You, the version of you that's not defined by the relationship, the version of you that's learning to feel without reacting, to walk forward without reaching back. Let your footsteps become your affirmation. I am walking away. I am walking into peace. I am walking home to myself. Ritual 4, replace the reminder. That old playlist, build a new one. That favorite cafe you shared, try somewhere new. The scent that reminds you of them, switch it out. These are not small changes. They're sacred boundaries because your environment shapes your energy and your energy is sacred. You don't need to keep reliving the moments that broke you just to prove how strong you are. Strength is not in endurance. It's in release. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Jay, what if they do come back? What if they text me? What if they apologize? And here's what I'll say to that. If someone left without clarity, if someone disappeared when you needed presence, if someone broke connection without care, they don't get to dictate the terms of your peace. Closure isn't a conversation. It's a decision. It's the moment you realize that waiting for their return is the same as pausing your life. And you were not created to pause. You were created to become. Here's something powerful I want you to write down. I am no longer available for open endings. I am the author of my story. And I choose to write a clear ending so I can begin again. That's closure, not an apology, not a return, not a maybe one day. Just you taking back the pen and choosing peace over potential. One more thing. You keep thinking you need a new person to replace the old one. But what you actually need is a new emotion, a new experience, a new you. The old emotions are chemically wired into your body. That's why you keep craving what hurt you. It's not love, it's familiarity. So instead of chasing someone new, start choosing something new, a new ritual, a new morning routine, a new space, a new commitment to yourself. You don't replace a person. You replace the pattern. So here's your final task for this section. Create a closure ritual, something personal, something symbolic, something sacred, and say it out loud when you do it. This chapter ends here, not because they said so, but because I did. Let's dismantle a lie that's held you hostage for far too long. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it was meant to be. Somewhere along the way, we started romanticizing pain. We turned suffering into proof of love. We started saying things like, If it hurts this much, it must have been real. If I can't breathe without them, it means they're my soulmate. But that's not truth. That's trauma bonding. Pain isn't always a sign of depth. Sometimes it's a sign of damage. You're hurting. I know you feel it in your chest, like someone pressed a fist against your heart and refused to let go. Your mind keeps looping, what if we were meant for each other? What if the timing was just wrong? What if this is the test before the miracle? And I want to speak to that voice in your head, the one that keeps turning your suffering into a sign. Because here's what I've learned. Pain is not proof of purpose. Pain is proof you're human. It means you cared. It means you gave. It means you showed up. But it doesn't mean they were your person. It doesn't mean this was your forever. Sometimes the pain is just showing you where you stayed too long, where your boundaries were crossed, where your value was overlooked, where your needs were unmet. Think about it this way. If you broke your leg, would you look at the pain and say, this must be my soulmate? Of course not. You'd say, this hurts. This needs attention. This needs healing. But when our heart breaks, we confuse the pain for passion. We say, it hurts this much, so it must have been love. But maybe it just hurt because it wasn't, because deep down something was misaligned, because your nervous system was always in alert mode, because you kept bending to be chosen, because you poured yourself into a future that never arrived. Pain is a signal, but it's not always a sign to go back. Sometimes it's a message to move on. Let's break this down. You're not hurting because you lost the one. You're hurting because you believed they were the one, because you built a life in your mind that they never actually showed up for in reality. You're grieving the expectation, not the experience. And that grief, it's real. It deserves space. But let's not wrap it in a love story that never fully existed. Just because your heart aches doesn't mean your heart was safe. I want to say that again, slowly. Just because your heart aches doesn't mean your heart was safe. Here's what no one tells you. We don't just fall in love with people. We fall in love with patterns. We fall in love with the chemistry, the rush, the chase, the uncertainty. And sometimes those chemicals are lying to you. A study from UCLA showed that emotional pain like rejection or heartbreak activates the same part of the brain as physical injury. That's why a breakup can feel like a punch in the gut. Like your lungs forgot how to breathe. Like someone cracked your ribs from the inside. But that's your biology speaking, not your destiny. It's your body processing trauma, not confirming fate. Let's be brutally honest for a second. You hurting doesn't mean they were your twin flame. It means you were emotionally invested. It means you were vulnerable. It means you let someone in and they left. That's not a soulmate. That's a lesson. And I don't say that to minimize your pain. I say it to put it in context so you can stop worshiping what wounded you. You're not supposed to be in a love that breaks you to prove it's real. You're supposed to be in a love that builds you, that sees you, that grows with you. Love isn't proven by how deeply it hurts. It's proven by how consistently it shows up, by how safely you feel in their presence, by how seen you are in silence, by how supported you feel even when you're not at your best. That's love. That's what you're worthy of. Let me tell you something you might not believe yet. You didn't lose the one. You're becoming the one who doesn't confuse chaos for connection, the one who doesn't romanticize red flags, the one who no longer accepts pain as proof of purpose. Because real love doesn't feel like walking on glass. It feels like walking home. So what do you do with this pain? You honor it. You sit with it, but you don't cling to it. You breathe through it. You write through it. You move with it. And then you transcend it. Because the goal is not to stop feeling. It's to stop worshiping the pain. Like it means you should go back. And here's the shift I want you to make. When the pain hits, instead of saying, this means we were meant to be, try saying, this means I'm alive. This means I loved. And now it's time to love myself enough to let go. Because every moment you spend trying to extract meaning from the pain is a moment you could be using to extract power from it instead. So here's your affirmation. Pain is not my soulmate. Clarity Island. Peace Island, Love Island. You are not meant to stay in the storm just because the thunder was loud. You are not meant to walk in circles just because the path once felt familiar. Let the pain rise. Let it move through you. Let it teach you. But don't mistake it for truth. Pain doesn't mean you are meant to be. It means you have a heart that felt deeply, a soul that trusted, a spirit that gave, and that's beautiful. But now it's time to give all of that love to someone else. You're not just trying to get over them, you're trying to get back to yourself. And maybe that's the part no one warned you about. That a breakup doesn't just leave a hole where they used to be. It leaves a hole where you used to be. Let me say this loud and clear. You didn't just lose a relationship, you lost the version of you that existed inside it. The way you saw yourself when they smiled at you, the person you thought you were becoming beside them, the future you painted with their presence in it. And now that they're gone, there's a silence. Not just outside of you, but inside you. It's disorienting. Because healing isn't just about closing the door on them. It's about walking into a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. Let me ask you something vulnerable. Who are you without them? And I don't mean what you do or what you tell people on social media. I mean, when the room is quiet and no one's watching, when the phone isn't lighting up with their name, who are you now? That's the real journey of healing. It's not just detachment from another person. It's reconstruction of identity. Because when we're in a relationship, especially a deep one, our sense of self becomes intertwined. We start to use their love as a mirror. We forget how to reflect our own worth back to ourselves. And when that mirror breaks, we're left trying to piece together who we were before it all began. But here's the truth. You're not supposed to go back to who you were before them. You're meant to become someone they never got to meet. This is where transformation begins. In the ashes, in the rubble, in the quiet, because now without the weight of pretending, pleasing, performing, you get to build something true. You get to ask, what do I believe about love now? What do I deserve that I once accepted less of? What did I abandon in myself to be chosen by someone else? And most importantly, who do I want to be now without compromise? Let me offer you something practical. Right now, your mind is used to filling the space with them. Thoughts of what they'd say, what they'd do, what they think of you now. You're filling the void with echoes. So here's your task. Fill it with intention. Start with this. Choose one thing that is yours. Not something they liked. Not something they introduced you to. Not something that reminds you of them. Something that's you. Maybe it's a journal, a morning walk, a new playlist, a vision board, a course, a room redesign, a new hobby, a yoga mat, a blank page, and commit to it, not because you're trying to move on, but because you're planting the first seed in your new garden. This is how identity rebuilds. One habit, one honest moment, one courageous step at a time. And listen to me, you don't have to feel ready to begin. That's a lie. Your comfort zone whispers to keep you stuck. You're not going to feel ready. You're going to feel broken until you decide to rise anyway. That's what strength really island. It's not waiting until you're healed. It's choosing to act while you're still in pieces. Because every time you show up for yourself, every time you choose discipline over distraction, peace over pain, truth over nostalgia, you're rewriting the code of your identity. You're not that person who waits to be saved anymore. You're the person who becomes the one who saves you. Let's take this deeper. You keep thinking you need closure, clarity, or even new love to rebuild yourself. But what if your future self isn't waiting on anyone else? What if they're waiting on you to finally say, I am no longer defined by who left me. I am defined by who I'm becoming. That's the moment power returns. Not when someone apologizes, not when they see your worth, not when you start dating again, but when you decide that your next chapter is too important to delay another day. So here's what I want you to do. Write a new self-story. No, not a romantic one. Not yet. Write a story where you are the main character. Again, not someone's partner, not someone's backup plan, not someone's emotional caretaker, but the hero, the builder, the seer, the lover of your own evolution. Write the version of you that wakes up with purpose, that knows their worth, that says no with clarity, that says yes with strength, that doesn't dim themselves to keep anyone else comfortable. You might say, but Jay, I don't feel like that person yet. Good. You're not meant to wait to feel like them. You become them by acting like them now. This is how identity works. The more you repeat a behavior, the more your brain forms new neural pathways. It literally rewires how you see yourself. So if you wake up and make your bed, if you choose a healthy meal, if you say no to checking their feed, if you show up to the gym, if you speak kindly to yourself, your brain starts saying, maybe I am that person. And your heart starts to believe it. Here's a truth I live by. You don't get over people. You grow beyond the version of you who needed them. That's the work. That's the journey. That's the gift in the pain. You don't need to forget them to heal. You just need to remember yourself more than you remember them. So say this with me. I am rebuilding. I am rising. I am choosing myself over and over again until it's not a choice, but a lifestyle. You're no longer waiting for them to come back. You're no longer waiting for answers. You're no longer trying to prove your worth. You are rebuilding an identity they never saw, a version of you they didn't get to meet. And that's okay. They were a chapter, but you are the author, and it's time to write something extraordinary.